First off, we're going to talk about, so what's an ELD? Why do we care? So the ELD is a piece of hardware that replaces paper logbooks, basically. So back in December of 2017, they put this mandate in place. You had to have them, and now it's finally coming into effect. So at the end of 2019, December of 2019, everybody has to fully have them in place. There's no exceptions. It just is what it is. In most cases, if you have paper logbooks, you have to have ELD systems. So sorry for you to hear that, but probably not what you wanted to hear, but that's what it is. So we're going to teach you about all the different aspects of different ELD systems, what you have to have. And Christy and I are going to be having conversations throughout the process, and we're just going to go from there. Okay, so here's Christy. One of the reasons I like ELD systems is it automatically does record everything, removing the need to fill out paper logbooks. And it just makes roadside inspections easier, less anxiety ridden for drivers, less paperwork, less hassle, less violations, and it makes it a lot harder for the drivers to cheat. So are there any things that you think that ELDs are like, this is what you absolutely love about them versus paper logbooks?
My biggest favorite point overall is it eliminates all driver error. As long as the driver logs in and he tells you what you're doing or what he's doing and when he's doing it, there's really not much room for error unless the driver forgets to log out altogether. The ELD is automatically going to track when your driver starts driving, when he stops driving. It's going to ping where he's at, so you don't have to worry about flagging your logs anymore. However, the only place there's the driver error is if he doesn't log out altogether.
Got it. I totally agree. So here's some of the things that I hear a lot of clients on my side, what I hear clients saying that they don't like about ELDs. Well, for the same reason I like ELDs, they don't like it because it makes it harder for drivers to cheat. So at the end of the day, that's sometimes a good thing, sometimes not a good thing. Auditing ELDs is just not as easy as checking for violations on a report. So in the beginning, whenever people first started talking about the ELDs and they thought, you know, this is a horrible, and everybody was screaming and yelling about it. And, you know, all the responses from the ELD companies and the FMCSA was, well, you're just going to have to see a report and then automatically it's going to track all these violations. And what I've figured out, I don't know if it's the same for you, Chrissy, but what I figured out is it's not as easy as just printing out a report that says, here's the violations, and now, poof, you're all compliant again. It doesn't work that way. But also another reason I found was that there's just more ways for investigators to catch the mistakes. I mean, it actually is a lot simpler for them to just go in, look at some different things that we're going to be talking about a little later, but looking at those things, it just makes it easier for the investigators or the special agents who come out while they're doing compliance reviews. What have you been hearing, Chrissy, as far as, or in your experience dealing with the ELDs and doing compliance reviews?
You know, it's exactly like you said. It is going to literally red flag every single violation. So if your driver gets behind the controls of a vehicle after 14 hours, it's going to ping it, and you're stuck with that for the next 6 months. There's no way to hide it. There's no way to mask it. It's one clean report the driver or the auditor can see every time. Just like the 11-hour drive rule. If that truck moves after 11 hours, you are stuck with that violation for 180 days, and anybody can see it at any time.
So I know one of the things that you're really good about and you're really conscious about is that anytime you see those violations, you go back in and you document every single violation. Is that right? On how do you do that when you document every violation, and that's where you're talking to your drivers?
I think the easiest tool that the ELD manufacturers have put out for us as far as documentation when it comes to corrective counseling or discipline action is their messaging system. Most ELDs come equipped with a system where you can go through and send your drivers messages. Typically, it will show when the driver has viewed it, received it. So you then have that paper trail right at your fingertips to show you as the motor carrier is not ignoring those violations. You're letting the drivers know they've made the error, they need to correct it. There is several different features in some of the different providers out there where you can actually go through and create forms. So if you're wanting to document a write-up or just a warning, you can send it there to the driver. So you have that paper trail now at your fingertips instead of having to wait for the driver to come back in to document the retraining. Kind of eliminates the hassle of building the paper trail showing that you're not allowing your drivers to violate those hours of service regulations.
Which I think that's a really benefit. It's a good benefit, I feel like, to the carriers who have to use ELDs, because it kind of ties everything back together. So you're showing what you're doing, right?
Oh, absolutely. Because you do not want to be the motor carrier that's allowing your drivers to exceed over the 11, the 14, or the 70-hour rule. You want to show, both in the case of litigation or audit, that you're letting your drivers know it's not acceptable. And this gives you a built-in tool. It takes seconds to type up a quick message letting them know you've acknowledged it, you're not allowing it, it was a driver error, whatever the situation may be. It's giving you that added tool as a paper trail to show that you're proactive in trying to abide by those regulations.
One thing I want to point out on that fact as well is that there are two different violations whenever they're doing like a compliance review. And I know, Chrissy, you've probably seen this during compliance reviews as well once you look at those reports, but there are two different violations. So whenever they're doing a compliance review, they actually give you a separate violation. One, you can get the violation for an employer allowing, like you said, allowing them to violate that rule. But then there's a completely separate violation, which for one, the fine is much less. But for two, it actually puts it on the responsibility of the driver, saying that the driver's the one that did it, not the company. The company still is responsible at the end of the day, but the fine is completely, it's a separate fine. It's a separate violation. So if it were me, I would much rather get, if I'm going to have drivers make mistakes like that, I'm much rather going to have that, prefer where it's on the driver side. It's the driver violated that rule, not the company allowed it, because that makes a huge difference during an audit.
Oh, and not only for compliance review with the FMCSA, but also for litigation. You want to go through and let it be known that you're not allowing these egregious violations. You're being proactive in the discipline and the corrective actions and the documentation. If you don't have anything, you're going to be almost as liable as your driver. Most situations, they understand you as a motor carrier and the supervisor are not there in the truck to actually stop the truck at the 11 or the 14 hours or the 8-hour rest break. They know that you're not sitting there in the cab with abilities to stop the truck. So the best way to protect yourself as an individual and as a motor carrier is to show that you're proactive and saying, hey, that's not okay.
Absolutely.